is Tarik Talk. Your host, Tarik Mendez, takes you on a journey with guests from all around the world. Broadcasting around the world. Around the world. This is Tarik Talk.
Hey guys, today we are here with Kim Bricker. She's a neighbor of mine at R150. We're artsy neighbors, you could call. Thank you so much for being here today, Kim. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Tarik.
Perfect. I'm so glad we finally get to do this. It's been so long we've been planning, so it's just such a pleasure to have you here. I really appreciate it. Do you want to start telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a printmaking artist and I work primarily in monotypes, which is work on paper that's one of a kind. A lot of printmaking, you create multiples, but I'm creating just one work of art at a time. And I do primarily abstract landscapes.
Yes, and I have to say, the thing I love and admire about your work is how it just brings such a peaceful tranquility to me. It's like every time I see it, it takes me back to like being a kid, like in a summer camp, or being by the lake, being by the water, being by nature.
That is wonderful to
Yeah.
hear because that is like one of my primary goals
Yeah.
and also where a lot of my inspiration comes from.
Uh,
Summers growing up on the water, just like you said, summer camp,
yeah.
like spending time with family,
Yeah.
and like really special places in my life.
Oh, I love that. So going to your creative process, do you like how do you come up? I'll make sure to include a lot of your work in the video. How do you come up? Because I see like a lot of it's like kind of sunset inspiration and nature inspiration. Are you actively like going on your, as you mentioned, being in nature? Are you actively like trying to take inspiration from that, or it's just kind of like a spontaneous process?
It's kind of a combination. When I travel, I take a lot of photos. I'm also working from memory.
Oh wow.
And then I'll look at, I'll observe artwork too, landscape artwork, and just kind of, I guess I sort of blend it all together.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily saying, okay, I have a photograph of this place. I want to recreate this. It's
Yeah.
more of like a mix of all those things.
Oh. So as you mentioned, you're inspired by nature. Do you ever, as I had previous guests here, did you like plein air painting? Do you ever do something like that with your work?
I haven't done anything like that yet. My process doesn't really allow it because I'm doing printmaking, so I'm working on a plate,
Oh, okay.
and there's sort of considerations for how quickly the paint dries.
Oh, okay.
But I was given a watercolor set recently
Oh, wow.
that's landscape colors, and so I'm really thinking maybe this summer I'll get out there
Yeah.
and try and do a little plein air painting just to draw directly from what I'm seeing and
Uh,
playing with those colors.
oh, I love that. I love that. And also, like, what's your creative process like? Are you like a morning person or a nighttime person?
I love going to the studio in the morning
Yeah.
when there's no one else there
Oh, that's the best.
and
Yeah.
it's quiet. And, some of our studios can
Yeah.
be sort of loud.
Yeah.
And as you said, my work is pretty quiet and contemplative. And I kind of I need that quiet, sort of meditative environment to create. And when I have that, I feel like I convey that better through the work too.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then, like, are you inspired as you're like when you're creating? Are you listening to music or, I know you have a lot of windows in your studio. Are you inspired by natural light?
I'm definitely inspired by the light, but also it can kind of like mess with the way I see
Oh, okay,
colors in the studio.
yeah.
And that's another reason why I like to work in the morning. Our windows face west.
Okay.
So we do get beautiful sunsets at the end of the
Okay.
day, and I've taken photos out the
Yeah.
windows to kind of capture that and, think about what colors are out there. But primarily, like I said, I'm in there in the morning, it's quiet, I'm not listening to music.
Oh,
And as you know, I share my studio with my husband,
yeah.
and actually,
Shout out to Josh.
shout out to Josh. When we're in there working together, I actually prefer that we don't interact.
Oh my gosh, you guys actually work together at the same time?
We work together at the same
Oh
time,
wow.
but it's like I don't like
I
him to
find that so
talk to me.
inspiring. Yeah. Oh
So
wow.
I'm just in my
In your zone,
zone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
And I
wow.
almost pretend that no
Yeah.
one else is there.
I love that because when I'm working, I don't like anybody around me. Have you guys ever thought of doing like a collab in a way with your work?
I've
which would be a little
I've,
complicated,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
I've kind of thought about
yeah,
it. I don't actually know if he would be interested.
yeah. But that's cool. I mean, you guys are like, I think, the coolest artsy couple I've ever met in my life because I mean, you're both like genuinely nice people. You guys look like models, and you guys are so
Thank
talented.
you.
Um, but also love the dynamic, how like listening to your stories about you guys, like your travels, your hiking. And I remember the first time you told me like one time of your hiking, I said, oh my gosh. And I remember you shared a picture. You guys were like in some type of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was like orangey red mountains with a little water. And I thought, oh my god, that kind of looks like her work. I wonder if that's like the
Yeah.
whole background
Well, we
of it.
love traveling,
Mm.
and during the pandemic was when we first got into visiting the national parks.
Oh
Like
wow.
everybody else in the
Yeah.
US, we weren't going abroad, so we discovered our beautiful national
Oh
parks. And
wow.
since then, we visited, I think, 6 or 7 in the past couple of years.
Oh my gosh.
And there's been a lot of hiking.
Yeah.
I prefer desert environments.
Uh,
I don't know, I find them inspiring and
yeah.
beautiful and austere. And that was probably one of those photos you
Oh
saw
yeah.
with like really cool rock
Yeah.
formations, really cool earth tone colors going
Yeah.
on.
It reminded me of like artsy, like you guys remind me of like, if I'm getting correct, like Christopher McCandless or the guy that wrote Into the Wild.
Yes,
That's like
yes.
the
I thought
vibe.
I thought I
Yeah.
remember that name. I'm
Yeah.
like, why do I
I
remember
always
that
oh I used to
name?
be obsessed with that book and the soundtrack is amazing. But yeah, that's like the vibe I got. It's like, artsy, chill, like
Yeah.
beautiful, like colors and combos. But it's like,
Also escaping
yeah,
the urban environment.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
that's,
Like getting away from people
yeah,
and just really immersing yourself in
yeah,
nature and
yeah.
not just observing the beauty, but I don't know. I think there's like I get re-energized from
Oh,
being
that's
out in
beautiful.
nature.
So you're not like somebody like me, sorry to be guilty, that's like there taking pictures and videos. You're like actively trying to be in the present in the moment, right?
I'm trying more and more. I used to
Uh,
spend a lot of time taking photos
yeah.
because I was like, I have to document these colors. Like, I'm going to use this later in art. And now I find it's more important for me to just observe. Like,
Hmm.
my brain will remember what it needs to remember, what
Yeah.
colors it needs to record.
Oh wow, that's really cool. Like, who are your creative influences? Like, who are you inspired by?
I was wondering if this question was going to come up,
Oh,
and so I
okay.
did actually a little bit of thinking ahead of time. Definitely
I was
Rothko.
about to say, yeah,
Yeah, with those colors.
yeah.
I've also always been a big fan of Diebenkorn, like when he was out in California doing sort of those weird perspective landscapes. I find that pretty intriguing. And then also some of, the great landscape painters like
Hmm.
Turner. I mean, the colors and just recording a landscape so that other people can appreciate not
Yeah,
just how it looks, but like the atmosphere and the
yeah.
mood and like the emotions.
Oh, wow. And I saw that you and Josh had a show at Novato Gallery. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes.
Okay, great. I love the work and I love both of your work. Can you tell us how that went? Like, how was it seeing your work there and everything?
I mean, it was a really, it was, first of all, it kind of came out of nowhere. We were just talking to Ann Novato, the gallery owner, and she was like, do you guys want a show next month? And we were both kind of caught off guard. And I had some work that hadn't really been presented in
Mm-hmm.
such a beautiful environment
Mm-hmm.
before. It's such a professional, wonderful space, and just the whole process went so smoothly. Her curation and placement of the work, I was so pleased with. My work is hung on the wall, of course, and then Josh's work is sculpture, and just the way that she placed them next to each other,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it really demonstrated this
Yeah,
strange
it
connection
was
that our
beautifully
work
created and
has,
presented. Yeah.
yeah, with it, like with each other, which I hadn't really thought about before. but yeah, I was extremely pleased and honored and humbled to show my work there.
Congratulations, a beautiful show.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also, one thing that I love talking to fellow artists is that I find fascinating is like the idea process. You know, like I'm an artist that I like to let my ideas incubate, and then when they're ready to like, let's say, be birthed, then I'm ready to act on them. When you have an idea, like, what's the process like for you? Are you right away like trying to like work that idea onto your medium, or you kind of think about it and let it digest a little bit in your head?
I keep a list
Ooh,
of
fancy.
like whenever an idea pops into my head, I just whip out my phone and I have like an ongoing list of things. And it can be anything from color combinations that I see when I'm out and about, or titles for work. Like sometimes I try and give a title to the work that suggests a place.
Mhm.
And so I'll jot those down. Also, just like weird ideas that I probably will never actually work on, but they're in that list. And then I definitely sit on them for a while. I'm like 2 or 3 ideas back in my actual work.
Oh wow.
So, I
Yeah,
have
me
things.
too. I know what you mean. Yeah.
I have things I want to work on a month,
Mhm.
2 months from now, but they're still kind of mulling around.
And when you get the idea, do you get like visually in your mind like the finished product, or do you see like colors together?
I don't do that at all. The way my process works is there's a bit of unknown to how it's actually going to turn out.
Yeah.
Just the transference of first the paint onto the plate and then the paper and then that connection. Sometimes I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, and that's something I really like, and that's one of the reasons why I like printmaking is there's a little bit of this, not disconnect, but I'm not directly working on the finished product. And I like that area in between where you don't know what might happen.
That's beautiful. And a question, like since I started this podcast, I've been getting a lot of questions, mostly from young artists, and they're always like, "Oh, ask this question, ask this question." Like a lot, like the main question I get is like young people saying, like, what would you tell them, like for a young artist? They're always asking on the podcast. Like for example, how did you start? Like what advice would you tell a young artist like that wants to be an artist but they don't know what to do? Like how would you, let's say, encourage them in a way?
The way that I started making art, which only really seriously happened a couple years ago, was I just got materials that looked like they would be fun to play with.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it was during the pandemic, and we were stuck at home. I had my dining room table and I ordered materials online, and I played like, we had time. I would just spend an afternoon making prints, making hundreds of prints, and some were really ugly and some were beautiful, and some were the kernel of what I'm working on now, which is landscapes. And it only happened because I was just messing around with paint, and I didn't necessarily have an idea of where I wanted it to go. And I went in a lot of different directions. Like I also did a lot of sketching. So I was doing figurative work. I was doing really just purely abstract work. I was really just playing with color. And so I was kind of like exercising. I was doing all the artistic exercises.
Oh my gosh. So do you have any of that work saved?
I do. I have a couple pieces that I think were like the very beginnings of what was happening.
Yeah.
And then also, I had a book of two artists, Russell and Remington, who were known for recording the Western landscape, I think in like the 1800s. And, I love the West, I love the landscape out there. And so as an exercise, I sketched every one of the paintings in the book. And I have those in a sketchbook that I'll keep.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love to see a retrospective of
yes.
yours. That's so cool. And did any of your like early work kind of look like what you're doing today in a way? Like
a couple.
Yeah.
But also there was always this play with color and trying to understand how colors work together. My artistic training was more conceptual. It wasn't like the nuts and bolts of art. So I didn't learn like color mixing.
Yeah.
You know, I know
You
a
just like
little
dove in
bit.
a way,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know a little bit about color theory, but like
Yeah.
I was just seeing how colors work together.
I love that. I love that. Previous guests, like they mentioned how being an artist and being with somebody that's not an artist is very difficult for both parties, like to share thoughts or ideas or connect in a way like with like inside jokes or things like that. How is it like being together with an artist? Like do you find it easier to like have a conversation or explain an idea and then Josh can understand it much faster than like an average person would?
Yeah, I would say, well, the conversation is like it's ongoing
Yeah.
and kind of constant.
Yeah.
And when we're always seeing each other's work in the studio because we're working right there
Yeah.
next to each other. And sometimes he'll even, if I'm not there during the day, he'll say, let's stop by the studio. I want to show you something that I'm working on. And we just, we speak the same language.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I don't know what it's.
Yeah.
I've always, like, previous to Josh, I always dated artsy people. So
Mhm.
I always have had, someone that understands
Oh,
that
that's
side of the
amazing. You're lucky.
conversation.
Yeah, no, because a lot of people say like, when they're, if they see like, let's say like a shadow, like, I had a friend of mine tell me this. She was like, like we were walking in the park and there was like, it was kind of sunset time. So a lot of shadows of people were on the ground. I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe it. And then we looked at each other and I said like, wow, it was like, wow, let's take a picture, right? But like without, kind of telepathically, let's say. And then I looked at her and I said, oh my God, this looks like Kara Walker's work.
Ah, wow.
And then she started, she says, oh my God, she was just about to say that, but I'm so used to like saying these things with my husband and he doesn't know anything about art and he doesn't get it, that I just like stop vocally. I just like think to myself. And then I thought, oh my gosh, that's very interesting. And then since starting this podcast, like certain people have brought up that too. And that's like something that was like my subconscious in a way.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to like talk to somebody that's within a relationship with an artist. Because it must be like, I think so cool and so like the vibes must be immaculate, it must be so dope. Yeah.
Well, definitely when we're walking around,
Mhm.
we're both very observant of small little details.
Mhm.
And in our travels, either of us will point out like, oh, look at that interesting tree branch.
Oh, wow.
Look at the sky right now. But I mean, I think regular
Yeah.
non-artsy people
Yeah.
might notice those
Sometimes,
things
who
too.
knows, right? Who
But the
knows?
shadow thing, that was like
Yeah.
Kara Walker, yeah, that
Yeah,
was.
do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that when people get it, they get it.
Yeah.
But going back to your work, you mentioned that you take lots of pictures in your hike and that gets, later transformed into actual work. Are you ever working from like, as you said, the two gentlemen, the books? Do you only work directly from the pictures you take, or are you like inspired by, books or magazines or whatever?
I mean, anytime I see an interesting landscape, I kind of take note of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I have also, I'll take screenshots of things
Yeah.
that I see on Instagram.
Mhm.
The other day, when I was working on some new pieces, some water pieces, I just did a quick search online of shore paintings because I was like, oh, yeah, like what? I wanted to think about, okay, there's going to be a sky, there's going to be water, there's going to be beach, and what are the transitions between those areas? And I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of background input on maybe how artists treat those areas. So I use that too as a reference.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And like, where do you see yourself? Like, are you an artist that's thinking of the future that you think, okay, I want like maybe 2 or 3 years try this? Like, do you normally like try consciously to think of different things or mediums to pursue, or you're just like, how can I make this better or transform this to something else?
I feel like my work it's on like a path or a trajectory. I don't know. I'm sure it will evolve over time.
Yeah.
It's a slow evolution, but I think it's evident if you look at the work. But I would say goals for the future are I would love to do a residency out west somewhere where I can really just
Oh,
like
wow.
immerse myself in
Yeah.
a landscape and
Like in a, like somewhere with nature.
yes.
Whoever's listening, because I know
Yes.
there's some people listening, because I know certain people follow me on Instagram. Please give Kim her residency because the work will be amazing. But oh my god, it'll be like the coolest thing for
Yeah.
you to see your work.
Just where I can maybe concentrate on one landscape and to be there living in it
Yeah.
and then, you know, observing
Like
it
day in and day out, yeah.
and working directly from nature
Yeah.
with my process so that, you know, ideal situation is like big windows looking
Yeah.
out onto some sort of desert landscape and I'm there cranking away at the printmaking.
Oh my god, I love that. I love that. And I mean, this is just an idea I had. Did you like question? Did you ever like when you're creating something use something from nature because your work is kind of like related to nature, like sand or a little, you know, like a little stone here or something like that?
I haven't done that.
No.
Right now the work is it's on paper and I'm fooling around with like how to frame it, but I'm not opposed to bringing like actual elements in. In fact, I have this jar at home where whenever we travel somewhere and I pick up little rocks and shells and stuff and I have this one jar that then I come home and deposit it in.
Oh my gosh. And do you like go back to that for like inspiration?
I don't really, but I keep it on my bureau and I think it's sort of like a reminder of like really fun trips I've had and really beautiful places.
Oh wow, I love that. It's really cool. And I have to just be nosy. What sign are you?
Capricorn.
And what month is that?
January.
Oh, okay. You guys are very chill. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, happy belated birthday. My apologies. Yeah, whoever's listening, please watch the video because Kim looks flawless. She looks like a top model. And then when you talk to her, she's the sweetest person. Okay, so Kim, do you think like having an art space has helped your work?
Having the studio space?
Yeah.
100%. I don't I was doing stuff at home, but it never felt serious.
Yeah.
But when you rent a space and you leave your home and you go to this, you know, it becomes your workspace.
Yeah.
And not just having that space, but being surrounded by the community there has been like a life changer.
Yeah.
I've never had the opportunity to work in a professional artistic manner, surrounded by so many people who are doing the same things, being able to ask them questions, get their feedback, just hear stories of how they're navigating the art world has been incredible. And I can't imagine not doing that indefinitely.
That's beautifully said. And I have a question. Do you when you start your work, are you able to like, if you start like as you say, you come in the studio early in the morning, if you're not done by a certain time that you have to leave, are you like okay with that emotionally, or do you kind of like get anxiety from like, oh my gosh, I've been here, this has to be finished, I cannot leave until this is finished? Or are you able to like, you know what, let me call it a day, let me go have a beer, let me go, you know, walk around, do whatever I want to do, and then come back and try to fix it or finish it? Sorry.
The process is, I usually complete a work in a day and then there's sort of finishing work. I mean, printmaking it's a pretty quick process. You know, there's the background of collecting the ideas for what the landscape's going to be, what color palette I'm going to work with.
Yeah.
And then I have sort of a structured way of laying out the print. So there's all that background stuff that happens ahead of time, but the actual printing process usually happens in about a day. And sometimes I've stopped halfway through and it doesn't really bother me. The process it's pretty chill, it's pretty relaxed, and I'm like in my zone. And when I leave the studio, I feel really good. Like I feel like really calm and like that edgy part of my brain has been knocked down. So I can stop midway through, and usually I find it's helpful for me for the finishing work to kind of take a day or two, because sometimes
like in between for yourself.
Yeah, because sometimes I don't feel necessarily 100% excited about what I worked on, and then after a day or two, and I come back to it, and I don't know, I've reconsidered it, and it doesn't. Things usually, I don't know, they sort of turn around and look a bit better after
Yeah.
I step away from them a little bit.
Okay, interesting. And the thing I like about your work is that you do a lot of like our kid. You're like, I'm so grateful to have the summer, but
I used to
you know,
almost cry like
yeah,
at the
that's
end
like
of
the
the
vibe I
summer.
get. And how another thing I love about your work is like the title. All right, Kim. So would you mind telling us the inspiration and the meaning behind the titles of your work? I always found that so fascinating.
So usually when I'm traveling and I see an interesting street name or town name or place name, I'll jot it down in my phone. And then I try to choose titles that don't direct the viewer too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them necessarily to need to know the specific place that inspired me.
Yeah.
But I want them, to just remember being next to the water sometime
Yeah.
that impacted them, or to be in an environment that maybe looks familiar to the piece that I've created. So I don't want to necessarily say, oh, this
This
is
is the
this
altitude.
beach,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
this is this desert. It's it should just evoke a place
Mm-hmm.
and a memory for them.
Oh, that's beautiful. And when you look back at your work, do you remember like exactly where you were, the inspiration for that piece and everything like that?
Not necessarily either,
No.
because it's kind of a combination of
Okay.
things that I'm drawing from. Um, and also, at this point, I've been to so many deserts that there isn't necessarily one hike
Yeah.
or one place. It's more just the atmosphere, the colors, the feeling that I'm trying to draw from.
Oh, well. And when you're creating your work, are you actively like consciously thinking, I want the viewer to focus on this? Because for like my perspective, like it kind of like soaks you in, and then I feel like emotions, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and then I start to like circulate the painting, and then I see the title, and the title to me, it's always like it's not overbearing, but it always goes perfectly with the work, and I always think, oh my gosh, that's so genius.
Well, I think of the work as kind of being like a photograph or
Mm-hmm.
like a fuzzy memory
Mm-hmm.
of a place. And so I kind of want, sometimes with more abstract work, a title can kind of help people
Mm-hmm.
understand what they're looking at. And
Yeah.
sometimes my work will have a detail in it, like a landscape formation or something that I want to call attention to.
Yeah.
And maybe it won't be obvious if they're just looking at it and not seeing the title, but then when they see the title they might say, oh, okay, yes, I see, this is a frozen
Yeah.
pond.
Exactly.
And
It always like gives like the cherry on top. Like it
yeah,
enhances it so much because sometimes I'll like see something like two of my favorites is like the yellow that goes into blue. I forget the name of that, but I remember. I don't know how to express it. Like the title, it just like gives that extra. You know, what do they call it in English? Like judge, like I forget. There's like a slang word that they say it's like
oh,
oh it's the
I
bomb.
don't know the contemporary
No,
slang.
but like that's how I feel. It's really nice. Okay. So Kim, would you mind telling us what you're working on at the moment?
Sure. I'm actually trying to do some sort of Jersey Shore inspired
Okay.
scenes. I haven't done a lot of straight up beach
Mhm.
viewpoints.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm sort of muddling through that at the moment. And I think actually what I need to do is I need to go to the beach and
Oh
spend some
yes.
time there
Yes.
to sort of understand the landscape and the color a bit
Yeah.
better.
Are you ever able to? I remember my question. Are you ever able to like mentally relax? Like my brain, I'm always thinking about ideas. Whatever I see, like even your jacket, the beautiful color, it reminded me like a cool sculpture idea, right? So my brain is always on, and that's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. For you, like when you go to the beach or on a hike, are you always? Is your brain always on like in an artsy way? Like you're always thinking, oh, this is beautiful. Like this, like for example, like whenever I go hiking, which is rare, but I do sometimes the thing I love about is the stones, like
Yeah.
especially when it's like red oxide. Oh, because it like I just think it's the most beautiful color for stones, right? And then it just gets my brain going, like sculpture, painting on this,
Yeah.
painting on that. You know what I mean? Are you like that? Are you able to like, okay, this is like a me time. Let me relax. Let me in the moment.
I'd say it's a combination. And I really like uphill climbs
Oh my
because
god.
then I can't
You
think
really
about
are like
anything else.
a lady, a woman that does it all. Like every time I talk to you guys, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna start being more like outdoor. And then you go like just now the height. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, let's do a picnic first. You know.
But
Yeah.
also sitting anywhere and watching water,
Mhm.
that calms
So
me down.
soothing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can just stare out there and kind of, the brain shuts
Mhm.
down a bit, which I need that every once in a
Yeah,
while too.
definitely. And when you talk about landscapes, do you mean like landscapes in general, or you, like for example, are you kind of like consciously trying to go after like paint sunrises or sunset or both?
Also, some of my work is not just a landscape, but it's what I like to say, a landscape through time.
Oh wow. Okay.
So as I shift my print across the paper, I'm maybe changing the time of day
Yeah.
or the season. So I'm also kind of interested in looking at a landscape and saying, okay, what about dawn or dusk
Mhm.
makes it look a bit different here, and what
Mhm.
colors are represented then?
Mhm.
Same with time of year. I did a lot over the winter that were frozen landscapes
Mhm.
and kind of playing around with a lack of color
Mhm.
or like really, really subtle
Yeah.
colors. So time is important too. And who doesn't love a good sunset or
What's your
sunrise?
preference? Like, you prefer sunrise or sunset?
Well, sunsets, I catch more sunsets.
More sunset.
Just because I'm not awake at
Yeah.
sunrise.
Oh, that's
On the
true.
rare occasion that
Yeah.
I'm usually surprised by how beautiful it is, but
Right. I'm like that too.
I'm not probably gonna get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah, I'm like that. Like when I do see it by accident or
Yeah,
whatever, I'm
by
like, oh, this is
accident.
so beautiful. I should get
Yeah.
up more often.
When
Yeah.
you're going to the airport or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, wow, this is so beautiful. The colors. And also, like, do you have anything coming up at the moment?
I'll be showing my newest work at the Jersey City Art Crawl, the
Okay,
downtown
cool.
art crawl.
And when is that?
That is May 11th.
Oh, 11th. Yes, yes.
May
Okay.
11th. I think it's a Thursday.
Thursday, yeah, from 5 to 9, I believe.
5
right?
to 9
Cool.
at the studios on the second floor at 150 Bay.
And let's just make sure because somebody messaged me. I think there was like the last art crawl or JC Fridays. Do you know the street names there? Because everybody.
The new address, the corner is at First and Provost.
First and Provost. Okay. I never know how to.
Take the elevator up.
What do you call, like, how to pronounce it properly?
Provost.
How do you say it?
Provost.
Provost.
I don't know what it means.
Me neither. It reminds me of like food or something.
I think it's like a administrative role.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway. But yeah, so the art crawl, there's going to be other artists there. I might be there. I'm not sure yet. I might be out of state. But definitely, we cannot miss. Please go and check out Kim's beautiful work. Say hello. Do you mind sharing your website and Instagram with us?
Instagram is Kim Bricker Daily. All one word. I don't have a website.
No. I mean, nowadays it's still trendy not to have a website and just use Instagram as the website. So you're a step ahead. And another thing, because there's an artist that somebody reached out to them in terms of commission. Are you open to do commissions and things like that?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can just like reach out to you, like DM you, let's say like on your Instagram and set everything
Absolutely.
up. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Just don't sound scammy.
Yes, please. No, like I'm willing to buy your NFTs or whatever. Yeah, please. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Kim. It's been a pleasure having you. I'm so happy we finally got to do this.
Me too.
You're a busy world girl, traveling, getting inspired by nature, and finally we got a podcast done. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Tarik Talk. Follow Tarik Talk on all social media channels and check out the video interviews online.